Recording in progress.
Oh, okay, so this is the heart of your creatorship with Rakie and Linda Rehkop on July 9th, 2023. Got it? You go. Everyone want to take your seats? We're starting.
Why don't you come and take your seat?
The gold rush of Andaros. What?
Okay, someone wants to come in, so you have to click them in.
Thank you for joining, everybody. We're just beginning here. Everybody's sitting down.
You're gonna have to talk either louder or more closer to the computer, move it closer to you. No, just slide the whole tray towards. And the sound will be much better.
Good morning. Glad to have everybody aboard. We'll try to make this a very interesting morning for you. So
Could somebody kind of close that so we don't have the pool sound?
if I can get it the closest.
No, you stay, Ricky. Let someone else do it.
I can read it up.
I'm there.
He's nimble.
Oh, yeah, like that.
That's good.
That's much better.
Much better.
Now not knocking everything over. Good morning. So are we ready to start?
You're recording.
You're on record.
You're on. Everybody's listening.
Okay. We're going to take you on a little journey this morning of where we've been, some of the things that we've had happen to us and encountered that have everything to do with our life today. We're going to use this as a metaphoric example. Oh, there's a delay by the time I talk. I shouldn't probably watch what I'm doing. This is kind of
be
new
your
for me,
natural self.
sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll be using this as a metaphoric example. We have managed to create a golden sphere within the center of our beloved planet. And this just kind of gives us an idea of what this looks like.
Just speak up.
Okay. It started many, many years ago, but recently it started in Sedona. We had gone to Sedona to do some work with the Native American situation there. We had tried that 20 years ago, and it was so emotional that I couldn't get through the ceremony. So we went back again a few months ago. I guess that's about how long it is. And proceeded to do a ceremony with 9 spiritual people that are pretty adept at doing things like that. And during that ceremony, the visualization, as we start talking about the mother and working from the heart of the mother out, a golden sphere appeared within the planet, very small to start with. That same golden sphere at this particular time is about 3,000 miles across. So we have some people coming in. So a little bit on, we'd like to teach people how to use this because it's for everyone. It's not just for us. We did the ceremonial work. We cleared some of the Native American energy. We found through the years that traumatic events and things like happened in Sedona, this wonderful, beautiful place.
Admit someone.
Years ago, it wasn't so beautiful. And when we were walking in to do a ceremony with about a dozen of us, I could hear screaming and crying, especially from the children and the women. Could hear gunshots in the background. That was them being evacuated from this beautiful land of theirs and put out on a reservation down below Flagstaff. So when something like that happens, it feels like there's residual energy from the pain and the emotional pain in the emotional body that in a traumatic situation like that, that doesn't always clear and always go back to source, so to speak. So this time we thought we made a huge difference. Some of the people in the circle said that we were surrounded by literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Indians across some of the big plateaus, looking down on where we were at. We were at the airport Mesa vortex. So it was a very emotional ceremony. Everybody spoke about some things, but then all of a sudden we have this golden sphere that we had never seen before. And it was up to us to determine, I guess, a little bit of quick history. I've been a channel for more years than I can imagine, like probably 40. And through those years, it's been our primary source of information. And that comes through multiple sources. I also do something called Light Talk, which is, it's very ancient, but it has kind of a Oriental overtone to it, which we found out some of the oldest languages do have that. So what'll happen is they'll give me some verbiage, which I will speak. I might do that a little bit later in our presentation, and they'll translate it immediately. And some of the information that comes through that is absolutely profound. We've done sessions with people. It's called Light Talk sessions, and most of the people that go through that process said it is literally life changing for them. They tell you a little bit who you are, where you've been, why you're here, what your destiny might be, and it's just something I think that helps each and every one of us grow when we know that yes, you are here for a purpose. You're not just here to take up space. And the people that seem to fall the deepest into their heart space are the ones that experience most of the magic. I started so quickly. I'm so used to doing a live audience. This is a little harder for me. This is my wife, Linda. And she's a huge part of this process. And so at times she'll probably be able to give some information also. Is there anything you wanted to say, Charles?
No, I just wanted to say when this sphere began, it was 150 feet across. So it has grown dramatically since the last full moon of 2021 is when it began. And it was a reenactment of releasing the pain that the earth has processed for her, for us. And so the fact that we have yet the whole diameter of the earth, I think we've got 1/8 of it done. So we definitely need your help to help grow this sphere.
It's a little bit different process. It's most of us, and I'm sure most people watching this are in the room, are spiritually oriented. We know we have gifts. Channeling has told us forever that we have no limits. It's only what we put on ourselves. And sometimes that is determined by our experience. If we've experienced something, it's kind of easy to access that. But what if you haven't experienced something and you know there's something out there more that you can do, that you can be a part of, and you start to learn how to generate emotional energy, which I'm going to get into that a little bit later. And it becomes a very magical world. But there seems to be some parameters and some things that if we get lost in any kind of judgment, if we get lost in any kind of expectation, it's not to say that you can't create from that position, but it's not where the magic is at. We have to work outside of cause and effect. So what we create, typically, even sending light to the golden sphere, we don't have any expectation of outcome. You know, as we look across the world and witness some of the warring that's going on, I don't think anybody hates it worse than I do, but when I work on it, I do not fall into expectation, because what if it was literally supposed to happen for what's coming next? It's just hard to bring that in to your emotional system, and knowing that war is such a tragedy. And so it's kind of hard for me to stay out of any kind of expectation. And we got some information from a source that said it's important that you learn that you can, in your thought process and your manifesting process, or trying to generate, at least put light into a specific place. We typically kind of take that for granted. That's part of our mental process, and we work from that point out. Channeling has said recently, it's more than that. It's that you need to go back to the point of origin. Now, what would that mean to a lot of us? It means that we all came from somewhere. If you're highly into religion and bless religion, it's a wonderful thing for a lot of people. But considering that we all came from somewhere at some time, if we can find ourselves back in that place, even through meditation, deep meditation, and ask, start to create from that point of origin, it becomes much stronger. And it's like the more we learn that process, the more we learn to pour energy into this beautiful golden sphere. I think Linda said it's grown immensely. We have probably hundreds of people doing this right now. It's not that hard to do, just to imagine a beautiful golden sphere in the center of our beloved mother. It looks like a sun, only it radiates golden energy as opposed to the more brightness of the sun. In other words, you can look at it. So through time, we've found out also that we can not only bring this energy to the outer parts of Mother Earth. And I want to be clear that when this process completes itself, this golden sphere, starting in with the mother, will find its way all the way to the oceans. When it finds its way to the water, the world will begin to change, and we do believe it will be the onset of heaven on earth. But so far, we needed a tool. If I'm in my world and stuff, it really helps me if I have a little bit of an understanding. I mean, you can go on blind faith, but when you really understand that if you think a certain way and you apply your creative process a certain way, so important to stay out of expectation. Expectation pretty much is like throwing a cold washcloth on your process. So we've learned some of these things, and that's what I want to share with you today. And my wife will also give you some pointers on that. Manifestation is really more about surrender and gratitude in our world. When we surrender to something, when we surrender to that which we perceive would be beneficial, whether it's creating light or bringing something into our own life, when we fall into that process and we begin to surrender to that which we desire, without expectation, I keep putting that little qualifier in there, but it becomes a very magical process. Like, I wouldn't have time to tell you the miracles that have happened in our life, not only since we've been doing this, but understanding it and moving forward and continually getting more information about the golden sphere, which I'm pointing out. Just like I said, this is just a replica of what's in the center of the earth. But the more we understand, the more that we surrender to this process, the more that we bask in the gratitude of that which is provided for us, the more magical our life becomes. And then you start to realize, Janlena said, when you truly understand yourself, you'll really understand you have no limits. But to experience that is kind of another process. I mean, it was easy to say for years and things, and you're going, I really want this, or I'm really putting my heart in this, and it doesn't seem to be happening. But we were also trying to attach some level of expectation. We can't fall into judgment of what our perception of right and wrong. In my world, there is no right or wrong. There is only the perpetuation of creation. And when you work in those realms, it's like in the world of cause and effect, you have something coming and something going or coming back. But in our world, you're in the middle of that. You're not really causing and you're not really affecting, but your desire as a human angel. And I do believe almost everybody without exception that's in this world, experiencing this world, is a human angel coming into form. A lot of people that's kind of overwhelms them, but you can never discount the fact that the capabilities that you have as a human they are unlimited. And there will come times when you begin to experience it. And like anything else, the more you experience it, the more magical it becomes and the easier it becomes. But I'm not going to say it's an easy process. It does require meditation. If you want to connect with trees, which we've done, extreme amount of meditation to make yourself that still that you're actually able to communicate with a tree. The whole tree world, I guess I'm digressing off a different subject, but the whole tree world can verbalize their intent. And if you still yourself long enough, the first time I had communication was after 12 hours of meditation. And then all of a sudden it's like, hello, little human. And and the first thing out of her mouth, the first tree that we communicated was a 200-foot sugar pine, one of the tallest trees. And she said, how can we help? And I was so taken aback. Once I got past my emotions and tears, I said, I don't know. And I thought across the world, I said, I don't suppose this was right when Fukushima was at its worst point. And I said, I don't suppose you could do anything with radiation. And she said, yes, we can help. And I said, okay, I'll take word for that. Well, I've tried to carry on a conversation, and that's not exactly how it works. She needs to feel this, feel our desire, and then she can express. But if you want to carry on a conversation, you probably better let someone else. But we tracked it immediately. We watched what was going on with Fukushima. It was pouring radiation into the ocean like no tomorrow, and it made a drastic turnaround very quickly. It's not to say that it's over, but I was so impressed. I said, well, our mind typically will go, oh, well, that must have been a coincidence. And it said, and another source says, no, it wasn't a coincidence. So I said, well, let's try something else. Ebola was getting out of control in Africa. I said, can you help with something like a virus? And she said, once again, yes, we can. And so we gave her that job. And Ebola was getting out of control within a week after she committed that. It was on a super decline. So I said, we really are into something here, and we need to increase our understanding when and how we can communicate and by what purpose. So we unfortunately we ended up moving away, and I didn't lose contact with her, but my life got so busy, I didn't have time for the meditation required. But just to know that everything out there, and I'm sure most of you know this, everything out here is alive at some level, even inanimate objects. But an experience in the desert, I was guided to be in the desert and told to walk into the desert at a certain time, which I did. And I walked into a different world. It was full of color, full of radiation of color. But what really impressed me the most was how everything was breathing. I focused on a little twig, and I was in a high emotional state. But once I got past the tears and all that part of it, I just focused on this little twig, and the twig would breathe just like I was breathing. Just like I would take an in breath, it would take an in breath, then it would go back. And so the person that I happened to be with said they couldn't see what I was saying, but they said, let's take a walk. And I thought I might be stuck in that forever. And it was a little scary because my normal world was nowhere present at that time. The love that found its way to me from the universe, and part of that was through the song Celestial, was so overpowering. I thought it was the most life-changing thing I'd ever heard. And I'm in the middle of this experience also. So yeah, a little bit of overwhelming, but we started to walk through the desert, and the person stopped me, and I saw this beautiful golden, not golden, it was actually orange, but in front of me, and I thought I would just walk through it. And the person with me said, that's a large stone. You're going to get hurt if you try to walk. If you don't, she stopped me and said, you can't walk through a rock. I said, it doesn't look like a rock. All it does is it glows and it breathes. And so I said, well, and we walked around for half an hour. It didn't change. Then we came back to her trailer. She had a very nice home in the desert. And I stepped on the deck, and it was just immediately gone. Everything was back to normal. And I jumped back into the desert floor, into the sand again, and no, it was gone, and it hasn't come back. Channeling said that was to give you an experience to know where you're going. In other words, that gives you a destination. This is where your spiritual life, when you get more evolved, have more understanding, more humility, more surrender, more gratitude, this is where you will end up. And we just kind of wanted to show you what that felt like. One thing that was kind of concerning to me is I felt this incredible amount of love coming from somewhere. I didn't even know where it's coming from. It was just, I was like overwhelmed with it. I'm crying pretty, I was pretty much lost in my emotions at that point. And I came to this understanding, well, if I feel this much love from all of life, how will I ever have a relationship? How will I be able to love a human being more than I love all of this? And the answer was you probably won't, but it won't matter at that point. You will be so filled with love, even the person that you maybe chose to focus your love to will be a part of all of the love that is coming towards you. So that happened quite a few years ago. I feel myself slowly moving toward that. I feel a necessity to help people understand what they are capable of and where they can move with these things. Um, I'm part of what I do is I've been a hands-on healer for more years than I want to probably remember. Um, my name, I was born with the name Rakie, but I never knew there was such a healing modality named Reiki also. Our names are spelled differently, but nevertheless, I didn't find out till about Reiki until I was like 40 some odd years old. I had been doing hands-on healing work before Reiki ever came around. I had that name and was doing that work 20 years before Reiki ever came to this country. So, but it helped. It helped to have something to identify what you could do. If you can do, if you have magical experiences and miracles and things, and you can say, well, it's the Reiki energy that's what does that. And it helps it more understandable. But in some of the most profound miracles that I've had, it's hard for people to really understand what's going on. And sometimes it will challenge people's reality. And there's times that I'm not sure even what to say, except if you fall in your heart deep enough and you fall back into that bank of love, so to speak, that exists there. In that world, there doesn't seem to be any frailties or any um, I don't even know how to say that, but something I also found that was important is that right now I'm going into a higher state, and you might need to talk a second, let me get situated. This is what happens to me is I'll start going up, and if I'm talking about things, and especially previous experiences, pretty soon I will start being there. And then try to think when you're in that state, it's very difficult.
I did want to say a couple of things about the tree world. It was a surprise to us when they told us that we are a chemical factory. And if as long as there's a human heart in connection with us to feel what we're feeling, then whatever it is you request goes around to the entire planet of trees. They're able to communicate across the water. And when Reiki made that request, it was like the colors throughout the world lit up. So it's quite magical, and it's the top 10% of the tree that you need to grow your aura as long as the tree is tall. And touch the leaves and see this color behind me, this cobalt. If you could shine a piece of cobalt, this will activate your relationship with the tree of your choice. So that has importance because, our air, clouds, everything has been very polluting, and everything can be rectified. So the important part about the tree world is there, once we're involved, just like with the center of the earth, they can create the miracles that you don't know that you're capable of because they're magical creatures. So that's a little bit more about the tree name.
Right. And the thing, we've kind of been on a tour up and down California. We live in Colorado, actually. And so we're a little tired and I might get a little scattered, but I will try to cover everything before it's over. So back, Reyon and Mary Lisa just came in. We're starting to talk about the golden sphere that's in the center of the earth that was created during a magical ceremony in Sedona. This is for each and every one of us. This is for life. There's no singularity, there's no ownership. So all you do to contact this is just close your eyes take some deep breaths, and just imagine a sun, only it's golden. It's not bright, doesn't hurt eyes to look at. But imagine that this is in the center of the earth. And imagine the more energy, unconditional energy that you pour into this, it begins to expand because it's a vessel that can hold energy. And like I said, when this expands, right now it's at 3,000 miles across. When this expands to where it reaches the water or the oceans of the world, heaven on earth will be at hand. We use that as a metaphoric expression. But we've watched how fast it grows, and the more people that get involved in it, it keeps growing faster and faster. So it just gives us a vehicle. There's not one of us in this room or on the communication that doesn't have a love affair with Mother Earth, and she so deserves it. But this gives her an opportunity for expression. In other words, everything we pour into her, every ounce of our love that we pour into her, now becomes an expression. So about a month into this process, I said to channeling, she probably said it because I don't talk unless I'm channeling, but I said, can we use this for healing? Is there any way we can contact that and bring that energy out? So we did some ceremonial work, and it was absolutely profound. At a specific time, it almost exploded and went directly out, sometimes in all directions. If it was something we were focusing on, it would go to that particular direction. So I would get totally enamored watching this process. And, it would bring me to tears because it was so profound. And then after a little bit more channeling and a little bit more time, they said, you not only can bring the love and possibility and potential from the sphere itself, but you can take a situation and put it into the sphere, and then it becomes a regenerative source where it does regeneration. So we would take, and once again, outside of judgment, it's a hard thing to do. It's very easy to see the wrongs and things with light, but we have to stay out of judgment. Our power exists beyond our humanity. Our power exists within our heart. And our heart does not make the decisions of what's right and wrong. Typically, it's our mind that makes those decisions. So getting past that. But they said, Rakie, you can take a situation, let's just say the war in Ukraine, by observation. Nobody hates war any worse than I do. But I know if I fall into that, I've just basically nullified all my efforts. So I don't. But they said, you can take things into the sphere to be regenerated, and then they will return to life in a higher level, a higher vibratory level with more light. The more light that we put into a situation, what happens is that it wants to find its way back to, well, let me restate that. The more light we put into a situation, any individuals involved, let's take some of the world leaders, people that make decisions that actually affect each and every one of us. If we, like we may take a situation, and once again, it's outside of judgment, but we'll take a situation and we'll just pour as much light into it. What happens typically when somebody in power, or even us, when we have a contemplative decision and something that's hard for us to come up with an answer, we typically will start going up, and we reach a certain place and say, oh, now I understand what that's all about, and I will make this decision. Well, if it doesn't reach a very high level and there's so much consciousness involved that's driving whatever reality we're witnessing, that doesn't serve well for life on planet Earth and all of its children. So with enough light, what happens is, I don't, if I single out a single person, that's going to sound like I'm not political at all. But let's just say a person of great power, and all of a sudden he's going to make a decision like whether to go to war or not go to war. How many lives are going to be lost? Is it worth it? All of that type of stuff. It would be easy for us to make that decision because we're spiritual, religious, and not religious, but spiritual people. But if we pour light into a situation outside of conditions, when that person goes up and reaches this light, they almost have an ecstatic experience of God or whatever they may look up to as creator. and make decisions in support of life instead of decisions in support of wealth, greed, or power. So it's very important to stay out of the judgment process and just do your work. And like I talked about a little bit earlier, when let's just say, you left here and say, well, I'm going to generate some light and I'm going to send it to the sphere in the center of the planet. And what is the best way to do that? The best way to do it is to come from the point of origin. And guess what the point of origin is in our own physicality? It's our heart. It's not our mind. Our mind takes care of us, but our mind is not the creative aspect of who and what we are and what our possibilities are. So come from your heart. If you want to send something to Mother Earth, send her love. Use this as a visual so she will feel you, and express yourself. If it brings you to tears, that's wonderful. I've found through all these years, because I'm really old, that the more love we generate, the more magic everything becomes. It's like coming down here and being to be with all of you and my loved ones, and we go back and forth up and down the highways, and the love I experience, I feel it takes me up a level, and then we go back to Colorado Springs, and we have a bunch of children. They're actually millennials that are very much close to us and very much in love with us. But I found the more love that one can hold, the more magic one's life becomes. It's just a miracle. It's just beyond. Yesterday, I worked with a woman with leukemia, and she was just so beat up. She was sexually abused when she was 12 years old. It ruined her life, literally. But now it's starting to take its toll on her physicality. And all I could feel was her pain when I was working on her. And I want to make a difference, but I have to stay out of expectation. I just have to pour the light and the love into her. I worked on a lady with, I might have talked about that the other night, but it was such a miracle. Woman, 32 years old, she's in Sharps Hospital. I'm just going to make this really short. Went in and music was playing, and I said, "That's beautiful." And she said, "That's my funeral music." And I said, "Well, let's talk about that a little bit." So, talk. I said, I knew right away what the problem was in the psychological world. Her husband was a captain, a high captain. He had a lot of people underneath him and stuff like that. And he kind of ran his life and his wife and his children like they were part of his domain that he has here. So she got nothing. She got no love. She got no affection. He hardly ever touched her, but put a lot of demands on her. So after she tells me this with tears in her eyes, I said, I need to talk to your husband. I don't know, whatever it takes. And she says, well, it's not going to take much. He's down in the lobby waiting for you to finish working with me. I said, but he talked to me. She said, so she calls him. She said, Rakie's here and stuff. He wants to talk to you. Is that okay? He said, yes. I go down. He was very easy to spot because he had his uniform on and stuff. And I told him that if you keep treating your wife and family like they're part of your army career and stuff, you will lose them. I said, are you willing to give up your life and your wife for being able to control them? And then he started crying. You don't see too many captains start crying in the middle of, there's people sitting around everywhere. And he said, Rakie, I would do anything to save her. I said, then love her deeply. Make her the focal point of your life. Make the children the focal point of your life. All this other stuff is periphery. It just, yes, you have to do it. It's your job, but just love her. He said, I can do that. And so we talked about it a little bit more, and I gave him a couple pointers. And this is honest to God, true story. The very following day, I said, her name was Emily. I said, Emily, when do you have your next blood work? And she said, well, actually tomorrow. And I said, please call me and tell me what's going on. And she had the blood work done. There was no sign of leukemia at all. So in the experience, all the things that I've been through, I said, well, there's a chance it could reoccur. If there's not enough psychological change, sometimes that can reoccur again. Well, I just talked to my niece, who was one of her best friends, She said, Rakie, I got to show you this. This was like 2 days ago. And she pulls out her phone and she said, and she shows me this picture of this beautiful woman with her 3 children that have all grown beside her. I said, this is Emily. It never came back. She is like majorly healthy now. But there's little keys out there. Sometimes we have to find the keys. Sometimes we have to find the psychology that may have to recollect those back. We have to find the psychology that may have caused disease. Disease typically just doesn't randomly show up.
Right.
Usually it's because of some of life's experiences, possibly how we think, how we hold things. Do we choose to hold anger when we've been wrong? Do we choose not to surrender to such and such a thing? Do we find the wrong as much as we find the right? Well, if you can change all that to just love, we don't have the time or the energy right now to hold anger, hold frustration, our feelings get hurt. But if you hold that, some people will hold that for years. I mean, especially in a failed relationship is one of the biggies. And another quick example, and the reason I give you these examples is because you guys can all do this. This is what we are. This is what we're capable of. We're magical beings. We just don't know it all the time. This is when I was actually in full practice. I had an office in Erie at Hot Springs. A woman heard about my work with people with cancer, and so she flies down. She's got advanced melanoma cancer or lymphoma cancer underarm. Her arm is already locked in this position, and she comes in. And what I found is talking to certain people and understanding their ailment or the catastrophic disease that's trying to take them over is, I want to know, what do you think? Tell me about your life. What makes you happy? What hurts you? And so I talked to this woman. She had flown down from Washington, and I was going to work with her every day and talk. And she seemed like the happiest go lucky person. And I'm going, this doesn't make sense. I said, I've never seen or worked with somebody with cancer with such a beautiful, clean, loving attitude. So on the 4th day that she showed up, I said, you know what? We've never talked about relationships. And I just watched her energy change. And she said, these are her exact words. That son of a bitch took 17 years of my life. Bingo. So guess what we talked about for the next hour? At the end of that hour, guess what else happened? Her arm released. And she goes, oh my God. I said, it's all changed. And she was healed, and she never regressed. One stupid thing. She had held that thought for 10 years. Can you imagine how much of your energy it takes to hold anger for that long? It's not worth it. If somebody wrongs us, just move past it. Everybody's going to make mistakes. There's going to be people, even that you love, that hurt your feelings at times. Just accept it, let it flow through you, and let it become part of your forgiveness. And know that, because let's just say, I'm sorry, I'm going really fast because I know I have limited time, but let's just say that you're holding a certain feeling, and you've been injured. Yesterday is a good example. This woman is now 77 years old, the one with leukemia, the new one. She was married to a man for 20 years who hardly ever touched her. They had no physical life, so to speak, but he was kind of a good person. And she said he wasn't a bad or evil person, but he never touched me. I never felt the love. So we just coexisted together. I did what I needed to support him, and he would help me. And then now you take that 20 years and you go back when she was a child and she was molested by her father. You've got a serious psychological conflict going on immediately. So she held on to that. The first thing that came out of her mind, out of her mouth when I talked to her was, I was badly sexually abused when I was 12 years old. Her father has since passed. So we went into channeling because I so much want to help this woman. Channeling said, and I can kind of do this. I'll go into the afterlife when people have passed over. Well, he not only passed over, but he's also he'd already reincarnated. Matter of fact, he's kind of old now. But what Channeling said is, what kind of help can we give you that you can give to her? They said, would you like to see what happened when he first passed over? There's like a holding period. So Christians may call it purgatory or whatever. I don't have any name for it, but I know when one passes over, gives up form, there's kind of like a time where maybe there's a decision of where to go on or how to go on, or whether do you want to go back into life? Do you want to go back into form again? So they said, how about if we show you what his feelings were at the time of death? And I said, that'd be great. As he was dying, and he knew he was dying, he just screamed to God, please, please forgive me. I did so much damage to my daughter, and I could never talk about it. I could never think about it. It was so painful. But just please forgive me and ask for forgiveness. So I told her that. It made a huge difference to know that at some level her father apologized, even if he was on his deathbed. But that's how important our mind and our process is. We have to take care of what's up here so it takes care of what's in here. And this is the magical part of who we are and what we are. Our heart can't really hate anybody. Our heart can't go into these places of wanting revenge or retribution for somebody who's hurt us in one way or the other. So all of a sudden we start to realize, if I love and I love enough, I don't have any room left for hate. Because the more you love, the less energy you have available for, let's say, the effect of that which has been caused. So it becomes a magical process, but it can be very challenging if we don't understand what's going on. I didn't, I had a life from hell, basically. It doesn't really matter at this point, but I didn't have anybody to tell me that. All I knew was to hate. And, I took it out on God because that's all I knew better. And, being an abandoned child, so many of my loved ones during my life were taken either violently or otherwise. And I developed a real attitude I couldn't understand, because even though I was an abandoned child, the short time I spent with my grandmother, she would just tell me, if you're a really good person, Jesus will take care of you and all of your loved ones. But I found it to be exactly the opposite of that. All my loved ones either died by accident, way too young. I didn't ever have a mother. I finally got a mother, and I'm not going to expand on this story. I'd never had a birthday. I'd never had Christmas. So my new stepmother, because my dad, she wanted a child and couldn't have one. My dad says, I think I've got a little boy out there somewhere. Well, that was me. I'd never seen my dad. He was a stranger to me. So he shows up, and my grandmother, I happened to be with my grandmother at that time. He shows up in this fancy car with this pretty lady, and she just put her arms around me, and I wasn't used to that. And my dad says, how would you like to come home with us? Jeannie would like to take care of you and become your mother. And I looked at my grandma, and she said, it's up to you. And I looked at I looked at the car. I know that sounds kind of superficial, but I'd never seen a fancy car. So I said, okay, yes, I'll go with you. So we're just told the story, but just cute. She wanted me to have my first birthday party, in which I would become 9. And so where they lived, she walked up and down the street with a stack of $5 bills, and every kid that she found, show up at the birthday party on Saturday, show up at the birthday party. So I'd like 30 kids at my birthday party that I didn't know any of them. But the thing, in the Christmas, she did the same thing. She bought me like 50 toys, and I'm not exaggerating. So I had never had one toy. I didn't have toys when I grew up. My toys were when my grandma had me, it was her pots and pans is what I played with. So anyway, I'm just on top of the world. And my dad said, well, it's not over yet. I said, what? He said, there's another present for you outside the back door. And behind the sliding glass door, the curtain was a brand new bicycle. I'd never had a bicycle. So I was ecstatically happy. I begged my new mother, to let me ride to school on the bike. It was only half a mile away. And first he said, no, you've never been on a bike, or, you need a little practice and get used to traffic and all that. And so I let a week go by, and then I went once again in propositioned her and said, the neighbor across the street, that little boy that I just met, stuff, he rides to school every day, and he said he would show me the way and stuff. So my mom finally relented, my new mom, and so we're headed down the road, and he's in front of me and I'm following him. And I looked back and I saw a car. I didn't realize how fast it was coming. So I started to cross the road. Well, it was a 17-year-old girl. The speed limit was 25 miles an hour. She was going 45. And she hit me at 45 miles an hour. My bike literally wrapped around a telephone pole. I mean, it just I was higher than a woman came to the hospital who saw the whole thing happen. She said, I just wanted to tell you that I was on my balcony. I saw the whole thing. You were actually higher than my balcony from the impact of the car. So I got to shorten this, but my leg was crushed on impact. And when I landed, it pushed my leg all the way around my back. And my foot was in. So when I regained consciousness, I'm looking at the bottom of my shoe, this leg. A year and a half in a body cast, well, a year in a full body cast down both legs. Both my legs were broken. This one was, they wanted to amputate both arms. I was pretty much a mess. But this beautiful woman, my new mother, took care of me. And I laid out flat on a wheelchair. My cast weighed 75 pounds. She couldn't even move me. So she just nurtured me. She loved me, which I'd never had before. And she got a private teacher, so I'd never been to school really. I think I had a little bit of second grade, and that was my whole education at that point. So anyway, when everything was going really well, she got the flu, kind of like what we just went through, only it was called the Asian flu, and was having trouble breathing. So my dad wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, says, we got to take your mom to the hospital. She's having trouble breathing. So we took her to the hospital, and long story short, she did not survive. And so now all of a sudden I have my mother again. So you can see where I would develop the hatred toward what I perceived to be Creator, or when I had to blame somebody for all this stuff. So anyway, the reason I share these stories is this is what we're capable of. The finishing of that story, when they tried one more time to tell my father, you need to let us take his leg off and give him a prosthetic. With his condition right now, his leg's an inch and a half shorter than this one. He's going to have to wear a brace and be on crutches the rest of his life. And my dad said, I don't care, you're not taking his leg off. So they sent me to a doctor who did polio work with polio children and built braces for those who were crippled. And he looked at the situation, talked to me for a while. He understood that I was very frustrated with life at that point. And he said, I've been thinking about it. I said, he started, I'm sorry. He said, I'm going to ask you to make your leg grow. I said, I can't do that. I said, it's an inch and a half shorter than this one. He said, son, anything you want bad enough, you can make happen. And so I kind of believed him. And he said, what I've done is I built on your brace, I put little 1/8 inch heels on here. And every time you come back, once a month typically, because I need to adjust your brace, I'm going to take one of those off because you're going to make your leg grow. Anyway, he convinced me. It took me exactly 1 year. My leg grew all the way back. So I've been an athlete. I haven't been triple level. I've been an athlete. Go ahead. You seem anxious that you want to say something.
Oh, I just wanted to say, let me put a face up here. In the development of life itself, what we're developing though is this desire and conviction, this ability to have compassion for each other. And that's absolutely where the heart of magic is when our hearts can begin to be as big as the universe. And then everything that we see in a person as a psychological issue, we see in the collective. So how do we hold enough compassion for this entirety of world in the situation that it is? It needs to empty. And the only way we can get to that emptiness so that heaven on earth can arrive is for us to hold compassion. We can't hold blame. We can't hold guilt. We can only hold compassion. And when our lives go through these hardships, and Ricky's had dozens and hundreds of them, he's developed a heart that can find these essences that need to go home. And so I just wanted to point that out, that in the Eastern religions, people say, well, you must give up your desire. And we're going, no, we have to develop our compassion. We have to develop our abilities, and then we surrender it. So it's like you have to not leave home without your desire, your compassion, your passion, and your intent. And then the other three words that go with those four words are gratitude, humility, and surrender is the strongest of all the abilities to manifest the heaven on earth that is our original design. So we are going back to our point of emptiness, just like in the Eastern religions understand. But if we don't hold as a human capacity for the tree world, as an example, an intent and desire, they don't have any permission to mess with us. They go, oh, we'll just take care of the tree world. But when the human comes along and said, please, could you help us clean the air? Could you help us, bring the children some food? Can you bring the radioactivity out of the air? Then you've got the ability of the heart to communicate through something that's bigger, because when the heart is a bigger field than the gain and loss and ability to control others through war or worry about your own survival as a country or as a person, those become small when the heart of compassion gets as big as what you're describing. So I just wanted to bring out
Linda, they
those
can't hear
7
you. Can you
with
put it away?
oh, sorry. So those are the 7 words to put down: is desire, intent, passion, compassion, gratitude, humility, and the strongest one is surrender, so that there is room for heaven on earth.
So are we doing on time? And
It's about noon, so you have a half hour.
okay, did you have your little sheet? I just want to make sure how we want to invest our last half hour.
So these are things that in preparation for this afternoon, let me give you this. In preparation for this afternoon, we're going to do some of the work that we did in the vortex of Sedona. What happened in Sedona, there are 7 vortices, and they were getting wobbly. What happens with the golden sphere as well, because there's no wrong and right in the worlds of our reflective angel team. So it's up to the human to solidify an intent and desire, so it's not just wobbly. So what we did is we reunified all 7 vortices, and then we had people in Colorado Springs to unify with us. And now there's a sisterhood between the Red Rocks and Sedona. So what we want to do here is bring this land in kind of a triunal relationship to Sedona, who is going to become a Mecca. And you want to talk a little bit about Sedona and why Sedona?
Well, Sedona obviously is a magical place. Probably most of you have been there at one point or another. A lot has gone on there, and some of it wasn't all that good. But nevertheless, it was held so sacred for so long that it has become a very, very magical place. We brought it up to channeling, and they said, what about this place? It's got so crowded, you can't hardly drive through it. I mean, traffic is a nightmare there. And they said, that will start to dissipate over a short period of time. And Sedona eventually will become a Mecca, literally a place of spiritual awareness and accessibility that will go around the world. So with those things, our friends that live there, which were all part of this ceremony, they said, but it's changing. They're trying to get 5G communication in there. They're trying to do this, they're trying to do that. But Chanlene said, don't worry about it. It will, if it's not supportive to the human child, if it's not supported to the evolution of human spirituality, it will dissipate and disappear. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to walk around carrying signs going, oh, no, no, we don't want this technology. So they said it'll all work out. Just have faith. It's important that you have faith. And so that's what we've done. And we will continue to do ceremonies there until this comes to conclusion. We're also working in, we live right next to a place called Garden of the Gods, and we're continuing to do work there also. But that pretty much fills up our life. We're pretty much dedicated to doing this. And I'm also dedicated to presenting so much light to those who perpetuate the war in Ukraine and Russia, that they will no longer be able to do what they do. It's not that I'm not holding judgment, but with enough light, they will not be able to make the decisions that are harmful to life itself. And we have found that to be an example and found it to be very true, that when we do take the time and effort and collect our friends and come together in a commonality of purpose, it makes a huge difference in how it plays out. So
Another another way that we emanate light into this grid, this planet. Let me show the people that are new. This is the metaphor golden sphere. And is through the pyramids. Automatically the planet sends its energy toward each of these grids. And we've identified 16 places that we're specifically measuring, Reiki being able to douse quickly the coherency of the world and the coherent or the activation percentage of each of these 16 sites. We can see which ones that are 100% activated right now. And there's one in Russia, and there's several in Europe that need further attention to bring more illuminated thought patterns to NATO toward the people that are hell-bent on war. So the name of the pyramid in Russia is Gotu Peninsula, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what it is?
how'd you say it?
G-O-T-O.
Yeah.
G-O-T-A, Kola Peninsula.
So that's right.
Kola Peninsula. And it's not far from Norway. So we invite you to put some attention on that area. And of course, the Giza pyramid, the Teotihuacan pyramid, Bimini is underwater pyramid. And I'd like for anybody whose Facebook name that I don't know, to let me have it, and I can invite you onto the pyramid activation group. I think there's about 250 people working on the activations of the pyramid. So the golden sphere has a way of emanating automatically through its grid.
Another thing with the pyramids, because we've been doing this for quite a while now, I always felt like there's got to be some way we can connect more deeply with them rather than just holding them in our imagination, sending the light to them. So just very recently, and Dick and Paul will kind of understand this too, is Chanlene said, each and every pyramid has a note, a chord. They all fall within the harmonic chord structure. He said, if you can, just go into your space, I go into these higher spaces, and when you feel, get on your keyboard and start playing, and you get close, you'll feel chills and you'll get goosebumps when you're getting close. Every pyramid is a little bit different. So we started before all this happened, like right before we left for this trip. And so we have a lot of work to do on that yet. But the amazing thing is they said, if you can recognize and duplicate and know what notes are involved in the tone that they're generating, then turn that into human voices. In other words, find a good program with a choir voice type that plays it out like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and let them harmonize with that particular note. They said if you can get, well, they said start with 12 pyramids, make it a little easier on yourself. When you get the harmonic note of each of those 12 pyramids and you play it at the same time through the human voice, you will experience heaven on earth, and it will start heaven on earth as a metaphoric expression. He said, it's in your hands, you can do this. And I said, well, I had to sell my one good keyboard. We were hard up for money to pay our rent. And I said, I don't have one of the keyboards that I really need. No response. Well, that weekend, this was right before we left, I go to the flea market, and this is, it's not an expensive keyboard, nothing like what Paul has, but it was a $567 purchase for me, which was huge. But we had to sell it for $350. And I said, well, someday if it's supposed to find its way back to me, it will. So we go to the flea market to sell things to earn more money. And I happened to just take a short walk from our booth, and some guy had come in from a pawn shop, I guess, had about 20 musical instruments. One of those musical instruments was my keyboard. And so I walk up to him, and I'm figuring in a flea market atmosphere, you might be able to get $200 for it. Typically, you might ask $250 or something, half of what the purchase price. So my heart's going 100. Now I wouldn't. It's not my keyboard. It's the same model. It's called the MX49 Yamaha. It creates over 1,500 different sounds. So I looked at it and I'm trying not to appear too excited. That's you have the flea market behavior patterns that you will. So anyway, I said, that keyboard, I said, and I don't know why I said this. It sounds a little deceitful now, but I said, it doesn't have speakers, right? He said, no, this is a professional keyboard. You have to have an amplifier and very amplified speakers to use it. And I said, he said, you can take it down and try it. And I said, well, I couldn't hear it because we don't have the speakers or the amplifier. And I said, how much are you asking for it? He said, well, I was asking 100. I'll let you out for 80. And I looked at my wallet, and I started the day with $100. It costs $40 to get into the flea market to sell stuff. So I only have 60 left. I looked at my wallet. He's watching me as I'm looking at my wallet. I said, I only have $60, but I can, when I sell some stuff, I could come up with 80. And he looked and he said, you really want this, don't you? And I just, yeah, give me your $60. So I literally got my keyboard back for $60.
So hopefully it's got the chords and the angel sounds that will help us build up these 12 chords that will loop. He's got a looper. And when we loop these all together, it's going to create the song Celestial. And when this gets experienced in the world, it will provide the light. People will be walking down the street. People will be walking down the street with tears in their eyes going, what is that music? And that's happened to Rakie several times. It happened to Admiral Byrd once in Antarctica. And it changed his life.
And the miracles like that keep going. And another even short example is to be able to put all of these sounds together and play them all at one time. You need something like a looper. Well, that's a $500 instrument also. And I didn't have that. So what I did have is I had an old guitar looper that I thought I might use someday, where you just push buttons with your feet to recreate a loop. And my friend said, you know what? I just bought this looper. It's brand new, costing $535 or something like that. He said, I think you need that more than I do. He said, how about if I trade you that looper I just bought for your little clip thing? And I said, but Michael, I said, there's a huge difference in price. He said, Rakie, pay it forward. I need to pay it forward. I've been gifted so many things. So he said, the looper is yours. So now when I get home, I have all of the things, at least to get started. And we'll see how it works out. But I'm pretty sure it's dystenic. All this stuff wouldn't keep happening if it wasn't at some level of dystenic. Are we doing on time, Laurie?
Yeah, like 20, 25 minutes.
Oh, well, I thought we were a lot closer than that. So anyway, we're going to be working on that. And when we get close, and I think we'll never probably get it exact. Has anybody in here ever heard what's called the song Celestial or Music of the Spheres? Yep. Probably Dick and Paul. Yeah, if you're into music and stuff, when you hear this sound, it's like if I could take 1 million people and have them sing one solid note, not changing, it never changes. It resonates to your soul level of what you are, and you will never forget it. It's life changing. And I'm doing this work not because I want to hear it so bad again, because I have heard it about 3 times, I guess now, but I want everybody else to hear it. Because when you hear this, you'll know there's much more to life than we experience on a daily basis. This is the sound of pure creation. It is the sound of every heart on the planet expressing all at one time. And I think everybody needs to hear that. So whatever it takes, I'm going for it to see if I can get close. Like I said, it may not be perfect, but it'll be close enough. It's just the most amazing sound. Is there anything else I forgot?
Yes, you mentioned earlier that you might be able to bring some light talk information. And I wanted to know if there was anybody that had a question to ask light talkers.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay, so
Like, just so you know, if we were in a religious setting, it would be called speaking in tongues. It's not that I'm not religious. I'm an ordained minister, but I'm not attached to any specific religion. I'm attached to all of us. And they will answer it in more of it has a little bit of Oriental overtone to it. And upon some research of my friends that listen to it, they go, Rick, you're not going to believe it. It's what you do in light talk is one of the most ancient languages out there, period. But then they immediately translate what was said, and that's something different that I have friends that are channels too and can do light talk, but they don't get the translation, but they'll tell me exactly what they said. So when we do sessions and I work with somebody, they'll give all kinds of advice and things that I don't know, and then they'll immediately tell me what they said. So yeah, we could try it and see what. Does
So
anybody
you
have
want
any
someone to ask a
questions?
question?
Hmm?
You want someone to ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Nancy?
Is it possible in this decade to have this happen where we do not have to repeat what we've lived in millions of lifetimes? We don't have to keep going to war. We don't have to keep doubting ourselves. And I'm going to use the word masking ourselves from our real self. Is it possible in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What would be possible?
So Nancy, you're going to need to come up here and sit down because they can't hear you.
she
So
says, is it
you
possible
wanna
to
come up here and
complete
ask this
in the
question?
next 3 years?
So that the online audience can participate too.
So is it possible for heaven and earth
Yeah,
to
I could hear Nancy.
Yeah, but they can't. So she's
Right.
going to want to repeat it.
If you'll say it, because I don't want to squish you.
Well, just come and have a seat. Otherwise, it doesn't record properly.
Oh,
And there's a lot of words to your question,
yeah,
and so I think they deserve to hear it.
Yeah.
okay.
So you want to tilt the computer, well, don't set
I'm
the cord.
I'm watching the
You're
cord.
gonna, yeah,
I'm gonna
it'll
do
unplug.
this.
Okay, now tilt it so you can see your face.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, why don't we leave it on Reiki? Because
Well, they won't hear you.
okay. All right. Hi,
Now
everyone.
tilt it more.
I'm
Okay,
gonna.
now speak clearly.
Okay, so I've been in healthcare. I've been in a lot of past lives. I've been through Atlantis. I've been through a myriad other planets. Genuinely, I didn't know that as a child. I grew it as I woke up in this life, stage by stage, thinking, am I crazy? Am I the only one? And am I making this up? And over time, I was guided to help with people who are pre-suicidal and post-suicidal. Sometimes they botch the attempt. I've worked hospice that I never thought I'd work. And I've learned a lot about, and a lot of near-death experienced people. My husband and I have 14 family members and friends who have had NDEs, including my dad, who do not believe in it. It changed his life. And some have had multiple NDEs. So why I ask this is because remembering what I remember, and never thinking I would ever remember anything like that, but finally realizing it was real, I'm asking, because I get the sense it's possible, but I wanted to ask Rakie in a light talk you've done before, or even today and what's to come. Is it possible within the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years that in this epic and this time, we will go beyond what we had to go through in Pangea, Lemuria, Atlantis, and other planets? Because on this earth, the guides have said consistently since I was 22 years old, this is a very rare planet. It's one of a handful where love can come here and we can grow. We can be happy and whole beings again. So if it's possible in this life and in this next, say, 10 years or so, I'd love to know. Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Okay, I'm gonna need just a second to get
Sure.
in that.
Okay, you're gonna have to
in
tilt the
that
computer
space.
back. Just say that again into the computer. So you can see your face, Rakie. All the way. More there. Okay, now say that again.
Oh, I'm gonna need a couple minutes to get into that space. I exist in a lot of different spaces, but I need to get into that space. So just give me a second.
So everybody just go in your heart. Support him.
Wakane mo siniko ka? Tapi kan warak sini mo ka de kini wat chinchu ba. No kan mo. Kami kan wat sin. Aman kan warak sini warak kamu warak. Oh, kami kan warak sini. Now I can say it on. Translation. If I could only express the gratitude to see all of your loving faces here at the same time in purpose in common. We witness your life. Nothing that you do, no act of kindness you ever do that is not noticed at some level. But I want to tell you right now, there's not a person in this room that's not from, let's just say, different places in the galaxy. Some from Andromeda, some from Pleiades, some from Sirius. You came to this planet knowing that you had a higher purpose. You just didn't come to take up space, so to speak. Each and every one of you is beginning to grow. And when we say grow, we mean growing in awareness, growing in consciousness. Each and every one of you has a destiny. Sometimes some of the children, such as yourself, will immediately go into a denial, but it's not true. What is true is each and every one of you are here for a purpose, and those purposes may vary considerably. In answering your friend's question, within the next 2 years, possibly a little bit less, there will be some what we would call fully realized human children coming into full expression. And then once that happens, that turns the corner, that each and every one of you knows that that is possible. And when you feel that and begin to know that, you will know what your destiny is and why you're here. There are no accidents. You just didn't show up on planet Earth because there wasn't any place else to go. No, you came from far, far away, and you were told this would not be an easy job. Matter of fact, it's quite difficult. Some people don't even survive it. But you are so blessed to be here now because this is when heaven on earth started to become a reality. Wakani ken wasana wa. Temi kwa, temi ken wata tekan warakan ni ba. Temi kan warichi, tamakara. They said they want to extend a blessing to each and every one of you for the life that you've led, for the pain that you've endured, and the love that you have and the capability to love so deeply, so profound. Can I come on my son? Can we get a call too? the song is that each and every one of you, with your own eyes, will witness things you never thought possible. You will exhibit talents, feelings, a sensitivity that maybe you didn't notice even before. But this is the time for you to be here at this moment means that you have endured. You don't want to just say pain. You have been exposed to levels of life that hardly any other beings have been exposed to. And there's a gathering time. There's a time that you'll come together in support of each other. And at that time, heaven and earth has begun. Right now, you're on the threshold. One step, and you're in a heavenly environment that's trying to come into full expression. Semiki, Semika, what about it, son? Don't know. I'm going to say, Chichi, oh my God, what is it? No, don't look at you, son. They want to extend their gratitude once again. Said it's the most important thing to know the work that you do, to know the life that you live, to know the pain that you've experienced. They hold you in the highest regard. They hold you in a state of angel. They use the word angelhood. I'm not sure there's such a word. But they said, all that you have now, the gifts that you feel, that you can express, the unexplained feelings, coincidences, magic, miracles, will continue to intensify. Within 2 years, reality as you know it will begin to change. And your beloved friend Nancy, within 3 to 5 years, there will be a pretty strong majority, at least in the spiritual community, to where there will be people in full expression. And that means being able to manifest within their hands. To be able to levitate. And to bilocate. So these are the gifts that are given to each and every one of you. Finding them sometimes is not that easy. What happens is your life's experiences sometimes are so profound that it captures your emotional life, which is part of what's necessary to come into full expression of your gifts. But you're here. If you weren't here now, it wouldn't be happening. But it is happening, and you are here now. So as you look forward, fill your heart about acceptance. Is it all possible? Okay, name of what is you? I'm going to tell me good was. Tell me. Said if it's all possible, find yourself in a world where there is no right or wrong. There is only the perpetuation of the human existence into their angel. Most special time, most gifted people. You'll notice music is one of the segues. Oh, sorry, I ran into something. Music is one of the segues into higher levels of understanding and experience. But as that word comes up, why did you come out going to work about what you demo? If experience supports your evolutionary growth, if its experience takes you to higher levels of conscious awareness, then by all means, hold on to those. But if experience at any level has been painful, or if it drags you down at any level, by all means, dismiss it. It is no longer necessary for your process. Hold on to the magic that you experience, something similar to what your friend Nancy experienced. That's what you need to hold on to. if anything seems to pull you down or bring you back into your metaphoric 3D reality, let it go. You don't need it anymore. Only hold on to what you need. You need love, you need compassion, you need touch, you need color, you need music. Focus your life on things like that. And if you've had a challenging, traumatic past, which we know some of you have, it's time to let it go. Be thankful for where you are now. Be thankful for what you were able to express from this point forward. The rest of it, it just has no value. Once again, in the greatest of gratitude, with a blessing to each and every one of you. We are always with you at some level. We witness your life. We know some of the struggles that you go through. You are on the front lines, so to speak. But it's not a war. It's about love. It's about you becoming the expression of it. So until we gather again, well, I hope it will listen.
Yeah. We're here.
But
Are you back?
not really. I hope they answered the question.
They said within 2 years, possibly less. Reiki said very much but just to summarize for Reiki, because he doesn't remember, he said it would be 2 years, possibly less, before some of the human angelics would come into full realization as an example for the rest of the world. And that the key would be surrendering those experiences that are not in support of you, but to adhere to color, adhere to music, adhere to love, adhere to a compassion.
Get some water.
Some water. Can we get some water? Well, she gets some water. Might you say a few things? I don't even know if there's a vortex in California. Does anybody in the room know if there's?
You turn the computer.
Is there anybody that knows if there's a vortex in California already? And then the next thing I want to know is
Yeah, but answer that.
from you.
The vortexes was created.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's the difference
Can you
between
turn-
one that's
Thanks,
permanent and the ones that we create and then close? Because it's important to close them. So yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add, then please you repeat it. One of the grandmother healers, a medicine woman, told us some years ago, about 10, 12 years ago, that the mother, the divine mother, has 7 sons in this area, mountains. Palomar is one, Shasta is another, and when she told us the Native American names. And then she stopped. She said this wasn't to be given out, but at this time, it is time to know we have vortices and we have sacred places that maybe humans haven't noticed, but we do have.
She says that there's 7 sacred places, and where we're
I
going
could hear
today.
that perfectly
one.
fine. I don't know that you need to repeat it. I heard it perfectly fine. I imagine everybody else did if I did.
Great.
Where's that coming from? Not, I'm not clear.
Okay, good. That means the new Zoom audio is working better than we thought.
That means God's working. That's always working.
Yeah.
As
So there are sacred sites. And Mount Shasta, of course, is one of
Obviously,
them.
one
We believe Mount Palomar is another.
she knows, Mount Palomar, Talkwish, which is near Palm Springs. Yes.
So we'll be working with the diva. Who calls them the giants, that watch over Riverside, Los Angeles, and San Diego County today specifically. And the dragons.
We will have with us our sentinel. Got a quick story if we have 1 minute. When we did the ceremony in Sedona, this was last week, we also had a crew in Garden of the Gods also doing a ceremony. One of our very close friends who actually organized that said, while we were there, 3 sentinels showed up. And one of those sentinels said they had to be with you. So they left for Sedona, theoretically. And Hugh gives me this beautiful gift a few days ago, and that he handmade himself. And before he knew any of this, he named it the Sentinel. So the Sentinel did show up. And this will be a part of our ceremonies today. It's magic like that that encourages us. It's magic like that when life is pushing us one way or another. But it's the magic that brings us back where we really should be, to the true aspect of who what we are and why we're here. No accidents.
So in closing, I just think it'd be nice for the online audience to hear a prayer or your intention to join with us in the ceremony this afternoon.
Okay.
If you want to speak to that, just ask them in your own words to how to participate with us.
Do we have a specific timing is kind of an issue. It's like we have a specific time, do you think, that will start the
We'll
ceremony?
probably be there by 2:30 p.m., probably in 2 hours.
Okay.
But the people online
but
won't be.
considering
so this
lunch
is for
and
them.
everything, maybe 3 p.m. Pacific time would be good for them to join energetically. 3 p.m. Pacific.
Okay. Sounds good. This is going to be a prayer of intent. Beloved Father, Mother, Creator, that which looks over all of its children. Today, we've all come from different parts of the universe, literally, and common purpose, common desire, common intention. Today, we'll be gathering at a place known as Mount Palomar. And at 3 o'clock, we will initiate a ceremony. Part of this ceremony is reunification of each and every one of us, reunification of the children that have come together in common purpose, and to pour the light out of our hearts into the world, and may the majority of that light find its way into those countries that still may be wide, and may those who have given their life, may they know it or know this will come to an end. It has to come to an end at some time. But today we will set the space for love, for unification of common spirit, heart, and we will move forward, and we will continue to do our work until the last gun is set down. We will not stop providing light. So it is, and so shall it be. We said at 3 o'clock is when we will try to start our ceremony. For those of you who are watching, if you could be with us, think of the golden sphere that we've been showing you. Pour your love into that and watch it regenerate, and it'll come back to us. There's almost a triangulation that takes place. You send the love here, goes to the center of the earth, comes back to the people in ceremony. I'm still grateful to have each and every one of you with us. We're grateful for your heart, for your love. It's how we made in person again. So it has a home.
Thank you, Rakie. Linda.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's time.
Sign off.
Say
Lovely to meet you.
I want to thank everybody for coming and for being a part of the ceremony in the class today with Rakie and Linda. It's always great when they could come and see us from Colorado. It's wonderful. So we bless you all. Let me open up here so you can all see each other.
Did you know Bodie's been over there?
Holding the space.
Out of the last 50 hailing sessions, you've never missed one.
Here you go.
I'm not,
Everybody wave to everybody.
he gets under the table and goes into trance state.
Many blessings.
Blessings.
An hour later, it's over.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
That's what he does.
Bless you all.
Thank you.